Hello, guys. Welcome. Welcome. Just making sure that everything is working well. If you are with me live, please let me know in the chat if you see me well, hear me well, and I will be starting the demo. Today, I will render one of the sketches that you have in your exercise from start to finish. I'll let you even guys choose which one you want me to choose. I'll give you a selection, but you'll ultimately choose. If you are in chat with me, please let me know if you hear me well, see me well. Alice, Paula, hi guys. Thank you so much. I had to use a different software to do the live today, so bear with me. I'm just making sure everything works well. So please let me know if you can hear me well and see me well. And can you hear? Perfect. Excellent. Thank you, Paula. So while I have you guys there, Alice, Paula, let me know. Hello, Angel. Let me know. How do you find the challenge so far? Did you had an aha moment? Was there something that you learned that you would like to share? Please let me know. I would love to start with this. And then I'll make you guys vote for the sketch that we will create together. Hello, Frederick. How you doing? How you doing? I think we have a little delay. Sorry in advance for that. But yeah. For all of you guys online with me, let me know if you had a moment where in the class, technically you should have finished the class. I think some of you finished the class really early, which is good. Gives you more time to work on the exercises. And I saw a few of you guys posting in the community already. And it was a pleasure to give you guys feedback on it. So, yeah. Frederick, I learned things in your feedback that are not so obvious in the training video, and it's good regarding cast shadows. Excellent. Excellent. That was what we wanted. Ultimately, I want to create more of these kind of like in-depth 2 weeks focus work on one precise subject with feedback. I think it could be a very nice boost for everybody as part of the DPA eventually. There's some cool stuff happening this week that I'll be talking in a few weeks. For Paintable as general, I'm super excited, but I cannot share too much with it. But let's say that it's going to be really, really cool for everybody that participate into these challenges and are part of the DPA. Alice, you say, I'm enjoying the challenge very much. It's hard, but I'm slowly getting into it. I've been impressed. I did the mushroom exercise, correct? Awesome. That's great. Well, thanks for the feedback, guys. So what would you like me to render today? So what my goal today is to kind of throw through the motions of rendering one in front of you guys. I'm going to explain all my thought process, and it will also give you the the opportunity to ask me questions, while I'm doing so. So I would like for you to choose anything but the Devil and Frankenstein, just because these will take me more time, and I would like to keep this one under an hour. And the idea is really to go through the workflow and motions, so it'll be easier for me. So please let me know, what would you like me to render between the pumpkin, the Excalibur, the mushroom, the snowman, and the cactus. And I will pick the most popular one and render this one. I think one of my favorite one will be the pumpkin, but I'm probably going to be rendering pumpkin in October. So you guys choose. You guys choose absolutely what you want. Frederick, you say, is there a specific date for the end of the challenge? Yes. So it was 2 weeks from the start. You should have received an email with all the dates. It finishes this Sunday. We have another live where I'm going to give some feedback, like I already did in the community, but this time live. And that will mark the end of the challenge. It was a challenge and it was helpful to go into details, but I couldn't find the graphic, the organic exercise, not the one with the cube, sphere, and cylinder. Angel, it was in the first email that you received. So if you go back to the first email that I received when you joined the challenge, there was a link in your bonuses. You'll be able to download it there. Frederick, you're voting pumpkin or snowman. All right, thanks. Anyone else wants to vote? Now I have a choice between two. Should have brought myself some water. I'll wait a few more minutes. Otherwise, I'll pick up between the snowman and pumpkin. Snowman Pola. All right. That's 2 for the snowman. Angel, thank you. You're absolutely welcome. Alice, do you want to vote? Yes, snowman. All right, that seems to be 3 out of, I think we're 4 online right now. So let's go with the snowman. All right. Bam. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to do is to make the background a little bit darker. So when you're rendering something, you have to think about the light scheme in the actual scene. You can think about just rendering the object, but if you think about the scene, the background, you'll be able to help you with adding some contrast from the get-go. So I'm going to create a layer at the back, and the first thing I'm going to do is to just take a little of a pale gray, and I'm going to make the background just a little bit more dark. That's going to give me like just a little bit more contrast. Then the very next step is local values. Whoops. Very next step is local values. So every element that you have on this character, whatever it is that you paint, you want to make sure that each of the component has a flat value to start with. If you start in color, you would have a local color. Now we're on grayscale, so we're going a flat value, essentially. So the hat for me should be darker. I'm going to put my lines into multiply to make sure that I don't have any problem with the values. So let's make sure that we have, whoops. Let's make sure that we have the correct value for the hat. I'm going to create new layers for everything. I'm going to keep the eyes the same color of the hat. The nose, I'm going to go a little bit more pale. You want to think about the value of the potential color. So I'm thinking like a carrot is orange, and I'm trying to think about what's the value if I were to translate it to grayscale. And then I'll put the arms on their own layer with even more pale value. Just like that. Okay. So now we have our local values. Now, the very next step that I like to usually do is the cast shadow and the form shadow, the shadow shape. So essentially all the shadows put together into one shape. Why? Because if you're doing that, you'll know right away if your form and your rendering works. You won't even have to like blend or shade. All you have to do is to add the layer of the shadow, and it's going to give the form right away. But before I do so, because it's a white snowman, I'm going to change the value of the local value of the snowman a little bit. I'm going to put it darker. Why? Because I will want to add some light to it. And if it's pure white from the get-go, I won't be able to add light to it. So that's not another thing, right? So whatever you're rendering, even if it's a white snowman, having something purely white when you start rendering is a mistake. So I changed the value a little bit here. And now I'm going to create a new layer. I'm going to put this layer to multiply, take a value. I'm going to choose this value, and I'm going to use that for my shadows. Before you do so, you need to choose a light direction. Now, one thing that you guys don't know yet because I haven't released it, but I actually rendered a snowman already in the part 2 of the lighting theory essential. The class that you guys received lifetime access to is also in the DPA, and the part 2 that it's announced at the end of the class, I finally finished it this week, and I'm going to upload it to the DPA probably at the end of the week. So if you're interested in seeing the part 2, where I give a little bit more insights and I show how to do these on multiple of those sketches, be sure to go check it out. But in this case, I'm saying that because I started with a top light view, and I'm trying to think if it would be beneficial for me to just change the lighting a little bit. So I'm going to try to do a different light source. Okay, so I'm going to establish a light source. I'm going to go for this direction right there. Okay, so kind of like front view of some sort. I like to usually do it like a flash in 3D, like an arrow, in 3D. So something like that. Okay, that's going to be like the direction of my light source. I might actually keep it and just put it a little bit further away. Frederick, you say, I have issue with Procreate to do that, the vignette. When the file is big, the brush is not big enough. So if your brush is not big enough, it's because when you created the brush, or the brush that you have, when it has been created, it couldn't go bigger. Now, I'm not an expert when it comes to Procreate brushes, but I believe that if you go into brush presets, you'll either be able to upload a bigger brush tip, or you'll be able to resize the brush tip from there. It's worth to also check on YouTube if you have like tutorials about creating brushes for Procreate. This would help you a lot. But in the meantime, all right, so I have a light direction established. I'm going to go to my layer. And here I want to do things with hard edges. Again, why? Because I don't want to get like lost into rendering. If you're doing with hard edges and it looks good, then all you have to do is to like soften the edges and it's going to work. So let's take this right here, and so you can imagine that. All right, so I would have like my Terminator here. I think that the bottom of the hat would be all in the shadow. The head of my snowman might kind of have this Terminator. Again, we're aiming for believable, not perfect, so don't dwell too much on it when you're creating it. So that's my form shadow. Now, this is going to cast on my snowman a cast shadow. And I've been talking about this in part 2 in a few of the whoops, of the critiques that I give this week. A cast shadow that is casted on an object will take the shape of the object. So this shape of the object is rounded. So the cast shadow will, if it was on the floor, it'd be like this, but now I think it's going to take like a little bit of like the form. So I'm going to give it an angle kind of thing like this. Just a little bit. I'll delete this, whoops, not too much. So, all right, so that's going to be my form shadow. For the nose, I believe that it's almost in front of it, but I think you would still see like maybe a little bit of a form shadow on that thing. So I'm going to kind of create like a little bit of a form shadow here. Maybe a little bit of corner for the eyes here. Frederick, you say one of the interesting thing in your critique is that shadow didn't multiply. Can you expand on that? Explain how it works exactly. Yes. Let me finish this and I'll give you an example on why. I'm going to add the form shadow for the arm here. I believe that this would be like completely in the shadow, that little part right there. I would have maybe a little bit of shadow on both sides here because it's facing the light, essentially. The body of my, I'm going to create maybe another layer, maybe. Although no, I'm going to stay on this one. The body of the snowman will also be getting that form shadow. I'm thinking that this here could make sense. Yeah, let's go try with this. I'm going to erase what I have here. Okay. So I have this. Now I need to create the cast shadow. There's a cast shadow of the arm here on the body. Again, when a cast shadow is casted on a form that is rounded, the cast shadow will take the shape of the form that's behind it. So in this case, it is kind of like, you know, it's kind of like rounded like this. So the cast shadow, I should have done that. No, I need to go pick it up. Whoops. Okay. So the cast shadow of the arm will kind of like have a little bit of a curve here. A little bit of a curve. So it's not completely straight. So let's give it a bit of a curve like this. Everything else for now sounds good. So now I'm going to put the cast shadow on the ground and I'll be done with the shadow shape. So now I want to imagine where all these points are going onto the ground. So what essentially you want to do is you want to imagine that your terminator for all these objects, right, they're casted on something. Matter of fact, I'm looking at my head now and I'm thinking, I need to go pick up that value again. And I'm thinking probably that actually that would be cast a little bit more side like this. A little bit more of a side view like this, maybe. Like a little bit more rounded. I think that's better. And so yeah, so now I want to think about how to project these shapes onto the ground. Again, we're aiming for believable, not completely realistic. So what I usually like to do is to kind of eyeball it first. My thinking is it's going to go like around here at the back. And you'll see a little bit at the front because that's casting on the front kind of thing. And it's going to be rounded, but it's also going to stay within the perspective of it all. I'll put it into multiply so we can see the ground. I know that this arm is going to be on the ground as well. Let's put that here. I don't know how long could it be, maybe this. The hat, and even part of the head. So maybe like I have a little bit of the head here, and then I have like maybe the hat. That's kind of like this maybe. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect. This certainly isn't. I'm going to warp the shadow a little bit. Might be a little bit larger. Let's try larger. I think this is believable. I don't know what you guys think. But to me, this is believable. Might add a little bit more on the side here. So already, I feel the light direction, all with hard edges. All I have to do now is to kind of soften a little bit and add a little bit of light, which I'll do. But before I do so, let me explain a few things to you guys and take a little bit of time here. So, Frederick, you were saying. Multiply layers, I'll explain that. Another thing is interesting, you said, and my critique is that shadow enlarge or reduced. I think it's because of the perspective. Can you expand on that? Yes. So that's exactly what I did. I'll start with the perspective of the shadow. So all shadows are based on perspective, right? And perspective has foreshortening. If it's close to you within the perspective, it's going to be bigger. If it's further away from you, it's going to be smaller. So when you have a light direction like this one, okay, that is starting from the front and you have a cast shadow at the back of your subject, the cast shadow is going further away from you. And when it goes further away from you and towards the horizon line, it's getting smaller and smaller as it's going further away. On the opposite, if I had a light direction that comes from the back and it pushes the shadow in front of this guy, it's getting bigger as it's getting closer to us. Because the shadow is closer to basically the eyes of the viewer, essentially. But also because the perspective works like that, right? Like I could just, again, I think I did that in your critique, but if I put like just a basic cylinder here on the surface, and I start projecting my cylinder on the ground here, just by the perspective itself. Like if I were to like, I'm going to create a different grid so you understand even better. So if I have an horizon line here, and I have my light source right there, okay? And I have a cylinder right here, okay? So if I'm looking at this, like this, and then let's say that this is the base, let's say. You see now, this is getting much bigger here, and this is my cast shadow right there. Does that make sense? It's getting bigger as it's getting closer to us. But if I reverse all of this and I put I'm going to keep this here, and I'm putting my light source in front, and now it's going into, let's say there and there, something like that. Now this is going away from us, essentially. I'm going to just put one. Let's say that's going into that direction. Hits it there, gets in front of it, and in front of it. Actually, no, I'm going to do the whole thing. It's always harder to have when you have the light direction in front of you. But essentially, this is going smaller because it's going within it's going away from it. It's because I'm doing the perspective now, but essentially, and now I'm doing the perspective, is because I'm creating a new grid here, but this is not how it really works. How it works is because you have your grid here at the back, like the same horizon line is there essentially, right? And so when a thing is going towards the horizon line, it's naturally going to follow the grid, which is kind of like this, right? So these needs to follow within that grid. And so if I'm taking this and I'm projecting it there, it's going to be smaller and smaller as it's going further away. So if I were to project it here, for example, then my cast shadow would go and get narrower as it's getting further away. Does that make sense? Let me know if this makes sense, but that's the idea behind it. As in the construction of it all, like my light source would be actually lower. Would be kind of like this. And then this is the construction of it all. I think the construction of it all changes a little bit. And I don't have the explanation right now to give to you, but I'll look it up and I'll try to post it in the chat tomorrow. But essentially, you need to follow the grid. Let me know if that makes sense. Okay, so that's one thing. The other thing I was talking about is the shadows that are not multiplying. So if you have a sphere, okay, and you have a cast shadow under that sphere, right? So that's the cast shadow here. Essentially, what it does. Wait, I want to make sure that I can explain that correctly. So imagine that you have just this snowman here, all right? That we put a light on it, okay? Essentially, what we are doing is we're adding light. If I were to shut down, okay, this light, I'm making a switch here, okay, and I click it off, okay? What would you have? You would have this value everywhere, right? Everything would be in the shadow, essentially. Even the ground here, everything would have this because there's no light. When you put the light, what it does, it's adding light. It's adding higher values on the snowman right here, and it forms the object. What's left behind, the shadow, it's not added. What's added, and I'll show you now, what's added is everything around it, right? So what we are adding here is not this. We're not adding that. What we are adding is this. This is extra light that wasn't there on the floor. And what's left behind in this space is the value or ambient light that was there before I added the key light. Let me know if that makes sense. Because this is exactly like, this is why they cannot multiply. Because now, if I'm adding an object, okay, if I'm adding an object right here, and for some reason the shadow are going together, all it does is removing the light that is here by and showing the ambient light that would be in the shadow. I'm having a hard time explaining it tonight, but essentially this is this. Hopefully this is making sense. If it's not, I'll give you more explanation afterwards. But for now, let's get back to the rendering here. So now we have our hard edges. All I have to do now, like I was saying, is to kind of like render the right edges to create the form. So I'm going to take a smudge tool, and I'm going to essentially just brush over my edges. And right away, you'll see that it's going to create the illusion of form. Now, if you do it too much, it's going to look blurry. So you want to not do it too much. But essentially, the edge of your rendering is going to depend on the plane. So if you have something that's very rounded, the edge of your Terminator is going to get softer for a longer period. Where if it's like changing plane abruptly, like if it was like a cube, for example, it goes from one value to the other value. But because this is a rounded sphere, it soften basically slower. I'm having a hard time explaining things. Hopefully this makes sense. So I'm just going to soften these edges a little bit. This edges a little bit. I'm also going to soften the edges that's on the ground. Why? Because, and that's another rule that I'm explaining in part 2. Because a shadow gets softer with the distance it has from the terminator of its object to the surface it is projected on. So you can imagine that from here to here, I'm having a much longer trajectory than the terminator for the cast shadow that's right here. Which means that my edge here is going to be more sharp than my edge here, and even this will be even further away, therefore even blurrier, essentially. So I'm going to create again. I'm going to go on my shadow shape here, and I'm going to blur a little bit at the base, and as I'm going further away, I'm going to blur a little bit more. And this is just to add a little bit more realism to your cast shadows. Something like that. So now I rendered the shadow. What's left to do is to add a little bit of light. I'm going to add some white for our snowman. So a little bit of light on the face here and on the body. Now you see that it's getting like an edge here. This is because I've been using the smudge tool to render. I should have probably added the light before I rendered. Where is my rendering? Right there. So you know what? Let me just redo the rendering. Add the light before, otherwise it's going to do this. I'm just going to create a new layer, and I'm going to quickly, since it's a very easy step, I'm just going to blur those edges once again. Something like that. And maybe this one also. All right. This is like 90% of the rendering that you have to do. You have the light direction, you have all your values. From there, it's adding occlusion shadows, removing the lines, and kind of like polishing your illustration. These are exercises, they're not meant to be like pushed a ton, but I'm going to push it a little bit more. And what I'll do so, I'm going to take all the questions that you guys have. I'm going to add a mask on my lines, and I'm going to remove the lines for the most part. I'm going to keep some where the occlusion shadows would be, because this is going to help me to have like a base for the occlusion shadows. Some of the lines are staying there because I think I smudged them when I added my shading. But yeah, so you guys let me know if you have any questions. I'm going to start adding a few touches here and there. I'm going to add some bounce light. These are all the things that you want to add, but this is the big part that I wanted to show you guys. Like, you don't need to overdo it. Like, if you're going through the logic of like finding your terminators, matching the angle of the light with your light source, matching all these basic shadows, if you have that, then this is a structure that you can build upon. And then all you have to do is to kind of keep on rendering. So I'm going to render this one a little bit more and talk my way through as well. And if you have any questions, Frederick, let me know if my explanation earlier were satisfactory to you. Otherwise, I can add some more explanation. I'm going to make a selection here. I could either push the core shadow or add some bounce light. Yeah, I think I'm going to push the core shadow in this example by painting just a little bit darker value right there. And I might do both by adding a little bit more pale light. Can you please show again how do you add a mask to your lines? Yes, I can absolutely do this. So in Photoshop, all I have to do is to just take a mask from the bottom of your layer stack, and you just click the layer that you want, and you click on the layer mask, and this is going to add a mask. And then you just have to paint on black and white. There's many ways to make these kind of selections. Another way that I'm using right here is to use clipping mask, where you have a layer that's clipped on top of a shape below it. That's how I have my local value, for example, stuck to a shape behind it. Let me know if that was answering your question, Angel. Frederick, for the perspective, yes, it was clear. Awesome. For the multiply, I think I will do my own research, but I think I get it. All right, cool, great. I used to have a video, I don't know if it's still there. I used to have a video in a DPA that was talking about warm light, cool shadows. That explains that phenomenon. It used to be in the skill path. I think I removed it recently because I want to create a better path, but if it's still there, go check it out. All right, so I'm going to push this a little bit more, like I was saying, whoops. A little bit more here. And at the same time, I can keep on blending and rendering these kind of things. I'm going to add some highlights. This is where you essentially you polish things. You want to remind yourself of all the different steps that we've been doing so far. Like here, I'm going to right away kind of like play with, maybe the eyes have a little bit of, this is not bounce light, it's actually like reflective material. I might fix my hat a little bit here and add just a little bit of like an edge of light on it, like it's hitting like a little bit of a light here. That could be interesting. Not too pale though. I could have, it's a felt it's a felt hat, so I didn't add like a highlight on the hat. Attacked by mosquitoes. But maybe I could see if I can add just a little bit of a, it's not really like a specular highlight, it's just kind of like it is a specular highlights, but I like to refer specular highlight as something that's like very shiny. And this is felt, so not shiny at all. But it might just show a little bit more of a transition of light here on the hat, so it's gonna make it look a little bit more round, and I can add a little bit more of a edge highlight here, although felt would not have so much reflectivity. This is where you take like your own decisions. You can decide of what's going to be like reflective, what's not going to be reflective. Sorry guys, I'm blowing in a microphone. I hope that's not too painful. Removing the lines here, taking my time. Sometimes I just smudge them a little bit, and then yeah, you decide how much you want to add. That occlusion that occlusion shadow in between the two might even have like a little bit of like a thicker edge here maybe. When I do these renderings, like the first few steps that I have, I absolutely know like what are the steps. You know, I'm going to do my local values, and I'm going to add my cast shadows, and I'm going to add my lights and whatnot. At this stage, though, it's a lot of trial and error. I am revising the steps that I previously done, but I'm also taking chances. Like for here, for example, I'm going to add a little bit of a highlight on this carrot, and I'm kind of testing it out. I'm also going to I'm going to add a darker edge here, and I'm going to blur it and kind of see like, all right, do I like this effect? Does it help me with the light? Does it still make sense? And that's where like the beauty of rendering comes in to me. It's you're taking these chances, but for as long as you are referring to the steps to render form, thinking about your light direction and these kind of things, thinking about, all right, so for example, here I could add a little bit of maybe reflectivity under this maybe, like there's like an edge maybe that's bouncing a little bit. And it starts to look a little bit more polished. It still makes sense. And I think that's the beauty of rendering, is you can invent a lot for as long as you're following the logic at the end of the day. I might add a little bit of a occlusion shadow here, like it's like getting into that snowman a little bit. That's the polishing part. And yeah, that's you know, I go through all of these things. I'm looking at the hat, for example. I'm like, all right, so maybe I'm actually could have like a little bit more of a darker part here, like pushing the shadow a little bit more here. This is going to add some contrast. Maybe there's a bit of a cast shadow here. Maybe. Just adding a bit of contrast. Maybe there's a bounce light coming at the back here. Does that make sense? Maybe a little bit. And taking chances like this. I'm going to push a little bit more, making like almost like a glazed looking carrot nose at this point, and I'm going to push the core shadow a little bit more. The arms can have the same kind of treatment. I'm going to have this. You have to think about material as well. Like, this is an exercise. Like, I can decide that everything looks like plasticky and sorry guys. plasticky and essentially have a lot of specular highlights that are very shiny. But wood probably wouldn't, like if you wanted to go like towards rendering wood and you want to have something that it's looking realistic, I would go find myself some references. I would go find myself some references and really try to, sorry, I'm getting distracted by that mosquito. Finding references to really find a way to render whatever material I'm trying to render, right? But for as long as you're following the same logics, where you're like, all right, so, you know, there's a highlight, it's gonna face my light direction. It's going to face the light direction, and you'll be able to render materials without even looking at a texture, by just making sense through the motions, essentially. Let me know if that makes sense. So yeah, I'm going to push that a little bit more. If you guys have any questions, got it. If you have any questions, please let me know. Sorry for the distraction here. So yeah, like I was saying, I finished part 2. It's in the DPA, but I'm going to release it in a few days. I just didn't want to sidetrack all of you guys that is working on the challenge. So I'm probably going to release it at the end of the week. The challenge finish on Sunday. On Sunday, I'm going to go live again with those of you that come, and I'll give some feedback on your work. I've been doing it all week, but I thought, why not doing it live? I'll revise if I do that every time, but lives are fun. Give us a way to communicate in a more direct way. And now that I'm moving to Spain, if you guys didn't know that, I'm moving to Spain, I'll have a much better time zone to do those lives, especially for the people that are mostly from English-speaking country. That's usually the people that are in the DP for the most part. There's people everywhere, I'm sure that there's not just speaking English countries, but usually Europe and the States are where I get the most student. And with me being in Thailand for the past few years, it's been tough. You know, for me, it's like 9 o'clock at night here. But now that I'm going to be in Spain, I'll be able to do these probably in my afternoon, which is much better. And these will kind of come at the same time for you guys, but I'll have just a lot more energy and hopefully baffle less with my words. I'm going to add some bounce light maybe here a little bit. Just a little bit from the ground. And yeah, I'm just having some fun here, kind of polishing this snowman. For these exercises, you don't have to polish them if you don't want to. You don't have to push them too much. Really, the first few steps are what's most important, because once you have internalized these steps, you'll be able to really just have the control over so many other things. After that comes the time for you to make studies of artists that you like, studies of photography, studies of textures, all sorts of studies, but with the mentality of understanding the light direction, understanding the cast shadows, understanding the light scheme, essentially. You'll be able to now study at a much deeper level. Angeli says, so good, so cool that you're going to Spain. Yeah, I'm pretty excited, although it's a stressful move. We're moving with my 1.5 years old, my 18-month old. and moving all her stuff. It's been a journey. We've been a few weeks kind of stressing over it, but I'm sure once I'll be in Spain, I'll appreciate every bit of it. I'm pretty excited about it. So yeah, I'm going to add a little bit more of a occlusion shadow here, pushing things a little bit more, but I'm not going to push more. Like, I'm not going to push a ton on this. I think that's pretty good as is for the example that I wanted to show you guys tonight. So let me know if you have any questions, but yeah, I think that's going to be it for now. I could maybe add just a little bit of a light here to tone down this. Like when I add light like this, it's more about a stylization. Like it takes a little bit of the contrast from the cast shadow, which brings back the attention towards my character. So yeah, okay. Looking at my son that's moving. I'm just hoping he's not going to wake up. I think we're good. All right. So yeah, so this is what I wanted to show you guys. If you have any question, let me know. Thank you, Angel. I said I'm glad for me, and thank you so much. I appreciate it. If you have any question, let me know. But essentially, these are the exercises that you already have started in the community. Keep on posting them. I'm going to keep on giving you some feedback on them. And your final task, your final homework will be to try to do one with your own sketch if you want to, or just continue doing those sketches if this feels more up to your level. But like I was saying, now that you have those steps, it's about finding your way, the way you want to stylize your rendering. Now, the structure, which is really just about understanding the basic shadows. Like we're having this exercise this week of separating between 3 values. These kind of small exercises will be super helpful now that you have a better understanding of the light directions of everything, because you'll be able to look at a picture and simplify it with just the form shadow and the cast shadow, essentially the shadow shape, with hard edges and everything. So yeah, so that concludes the demo for tonight, but I just want to make sure that I answer all the questions before I go, guys. So if you have any questions, please let me know. I'll be happy to answer them. I'll stay with you guys for a few more minutes. And so yeah, on Sunday, I'll come and kind of do paint overs over a few pieces. That's going to give you the chance to ask me questions live while I'm doing the corrections. So that's the plus of it all. So yeah, there's always a bit of delay, so I'm just gonna wait. But yeah, Frederick, if you have any question, let me know. If you don't have any, also let me know. Angel and who else was there? Paula, Alice. Yeah. If you guys are still with me, let me know if you have any questions. Otherwise, I'll let you go with the rest of your day. And yeah, I'm excited about Spain, going back to this, because it's fun to do those lives, but it's always really, really hard to do them super late. And before I had my son, I was able to stay much later, but then I would be able to sleep in the morning. Now I cannot sleep in the morning, so it makes the task a lot harder. Hopefully in Spain, I'll be able to just catch some sleep and do these in a much better time. So that's just for that, it's already a plus. Alice, you say, I'm good, thanks for the live. You're absolutely welcome. And Frederick, you say, can you explain quickly how the bounce shadow interact with other shadow? There's no such thing as a bounce shadow. So can you explain what you mean by how bounce shadow? You mean bounce light? Paula, you say it's all clear here. Thank you for the live. I'm going to finish my snowman. All right, that's awesome. When you have it finished, please post it. I'll be happy to give you feedback about it. Frederick, please elaborate on your question, and I'll give you some explanation on it. Bounce light. Yes. Okay. So your question is what? Can you explain quickly how bounce light interacts with other shadows or with other bounce light or other light? And I'll try to explain that a little bit. But I guess I can start a little bit. All right, so bounce light. Essentially, bounce light is light that it's an object becomes a light source when a key light is so strong that it goes on it and it reflects light back. Like in this case, you have one key light source. Wait. In other videos, there is a black shadow in one side and a bounce light in other side of the object, and it seems to contradict themselves a bit. You would have to show me the example, but let me just give you the broad example of like what is bounce light. But please tag me in the community and let me know your question is based on what, and I'll go check it out. But for now, let me give you feedback on this. So when you have bounce light going onto, or just key light going into an object, so that object has now light, creates terminators and form shadow and cast shadow and all of that. But this object also becomes a light source by itself. So this snowman, especially if it's a white object, they will kind of like bounce back a lot of light because it's white. Let me just, sorry, I want to read this. I'm receiving email from you. For at least a month, and I really won't be able to practice on the organic model. This is the first email I received after making the payment. Yeah, it should have been the first email that you received after the payment. Yeah, it should be. But Angel, if you have any issues, email me at hello@paintable.cc. hello@paintable.cc. And I'll be able to look into it. Just email me with the email that you purchased the class. Back to the explanation here. So it comes on this, and this becomes a light source. So essentially, this starts to kind of like shine, if you want to, right? So this is what bounce light does. So here, all of this is the form shadow of the head. And then you have a section here. That's the light coming from this that bounce back into the head. Let me know if that's clear, Frederick, because that's just essentially the base of it. That's just the base of it. Now, from imagination, what I'm doing is I'm guessing mostly where it goes. But that's the beauty of it. We're not going for pure realism. We're going for believable, essentially. Yes, that's correct, Frederick. Thanks for letting him know. So we're going for believable, not purely realistic, which means that by adding just a little bit of bounce light, it gives us a signal of like, all right, yeah, there's an object right here, right beside it that bounced back into it, kind of thing. And usually that's enough to kind of create the illusion of realism. It's the same thing that happens here with the nose. Like on this light source, I'm not exactly sure if there's a ton of bounce light under the nose of that snowman. I'm kind of guessing, but I'm adding it, and it helps to render the form. It looks 3D, and it's following the same logic of like core shadow and form shadow and all of that, which ultimately makes it look believable. And that's what we're aiming for. Let me know if this is clear, and let me know if this is explaining the question that you had. Yeah. Like, you know, like for example here, I'm adding a lot of bounce light. Probably there's not going to be that much. Probably that even this bounce light would not go so low because there's like the shadow here. So this might be like a little bit more in the shadow, and maybe all of this would actually like be more in the shadow and darker. And then you would have a little bit of bounce light maybe in front of it, because the ground is completely white in front of it. But maybe as you go at the back, it would just be like pure shadow. That might be a little bit more realistic, if you know what I mean. It's okay. I will ask you in the Discord, the link in the video and I'm referring to, and in the proper version. All right, sounds good. Cool. Well, thank you so much for joining me, guys, live. I'll see you on Sunday, hopefully, for the live critiques. In the meantime, keep posting your work in there. I'm super proud of all of you guys that really pushing your skills by doing the work and getting the critique and then reworking your artwork, because this is really the way to get better. Getting critique, getting feedback, and then reworking those mistakes. So congrats on your hard work. I'll see you in the community, guys, for the rest of the week. And otherwise, I'll talk to you on Sunday. Have a great day, guys. Ciao, ciao.